Ashley Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished organizing the last stack of financial documents on her desk. The home office she'd converted from what used to be the storage closet was cramped, but it was hers. 3 monitors displayed spreadsheets, bank statements, and property management software that had become as familiar to her as her own reflection. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. At 28, Ashley had been managing her family's finances for nearly a decade. What started as helping her mother balance the checkbook when she was 18 had evolved into something much more complex. She now handled the mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance premiums, and most importantly, the rent collection from the 3 properties her family owned in downtown Portland, Oregon. The Martinez family had built their small real estate empire through years of careful saving and strategic purchases. Ashley's father, Roberto, worked as a construction foreman, while her mother, Carmen, managed a local grocery store. Her younger brother, Diego, was finishing his final year at Portland State University, studying business administration with dreams of expanding the family's property portfolio. Her older sister, Melissa, had recently moved back home after her divorce, bringing along her 8-year-old daughter, Sophia. The house on Maple Street had become crowded, but Ashley didn't mind. She'd always been the one to hold things together, the responsible one who made sure everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. Ashley's phone buzzed with a text from one of their tenants confirming next month's rent payment. She smiled as she updated the spreadsheet. The properties were doing well. The downtown apartment building they'd purchased 5 years ago was fully occupied, and the small commercial space they rented to a local bakery had just signed a lease extension. Her expertise hadn't gone unnoticed in the community either. Word had spread about her meticulous attention to detail and fair but firm approach to property management. 3 other families in the neighborhood had asked her to manage their rental properties, creating a small side business that brought in additional income for the Martinez household. "Ashley, dinner," Carmen called from the kitchen. Ashley saved her work and headed downstairs, passing the family photos that lined the hallway walls. Pictures from Diego's high school graduation, Melissa's wedding, Sophia's first day of school, and various family gatherings over the years created a warm collage of memories. The dining room table was set for 6, with Carmen's famous chicken enchiladas taking center stage. Roberto was already seated, still in his work clothes, dirt under his fingernails from the construction site. Diego burst through the front door just as Ashley sat down, his backpack slung over his shoulder and textbooks spilling out. "Perfect timing," he announced, dropping his bag and sliding into his chair. "Professor Williams kept us late discussing the final project presentations next week." "What's your project about again?" Melissa asked while cutting Sophia's enchilada into smaller pieces. "Commercial real estate development in urban areas. I'm actually using our properties as case studies," Diego replied, grinning at Ashley. "Thanks again for letting me access all those financial reports." Ashley nodded, pleased that her careful record-keeping was helping her brother succeed academically. She'd spent hours explaining the intricacies of property management to him, from tenant screening processes to maintenance scheduling and tax implications. "Speaking of projects," Roberto interjected, "the Henderson building needs new carpeting in the hallway. Ashley, can you get some quotes this week?" "Already on it," Ashley replied, pulling out her phone to show him the 3 estimates she'd received that afternoon. "Martinez Flooring gave us the best price, and they can start Monday." Carmen beamed with pride. "I don't know what we'd do without you, mija. You handle everything so perfectly." The conversation flowed naturally around the table, touching on Diego's upcoming graduation, Melissa's job search, and Sophia's school play rehearsals. Ashley listened, contributing when asked, but mostly focused on mentally organizing her task list for the following day. After dinner, Ashley returned to her office to review the quarterly tax preparations. The family's accountant had complimented her organizational skills repeatedly, noting that the Martinez files were among the most thorough and accurate he'd ever worked with. Ashley took pride in maintaining detailed records of every transaction, every repair, every interaction with tenants. Her phone rang, displaying the name Thompson Apartments, their largest tenant in the downtown building. "Hi, Mr. Thompson, how can I help you?" "Ashley, I'm sorry to bother you so late, but we have a situation with the heating unit in apartment 3B. It completely stopped working this afternoon." Ashley immediately pulled up the building's maintenance records on her computer.
No problem. I'll contact Rodriguez Heating first thing tomorrow morning. They installed the unit 2 years ago, so it should still be under partial warranty. In the meantime, I'll arrange for a temporary heater to be delivered tonight. You're amazing. Thank you so much. The tenant was worried about being cold overnight. Within 10 minutes, Ashley had coordinated with a 24-hour equipment rental company and texted the tenant directly with an estimated delivery time. She then scheduled the heating repair for early the next morning and updated the maintenance log with detailed notes about the issue. These were the moments that reminded Ashley why she'd naturally gravitated toward property management. Every problem had a solution. Every challenge could be overcome with the right preparation and attention to detail. Her family trusted her judgment completely, often deferring to her expertise on financial decisions that affected their entire future. Later that evening, as Ashley prepared for bed, she noticed the calendar on her nightstand. March was nearly over, and spring was beginning to show its first signs in Portland. The cherry trees in the neighborhood were starting to bloom, and the days were getting longer. She flipped to April, scanning the dates ahead. Rent collection would be due from all properties on the 1st, quarterly insurance payments were scheduled for the 15th, and Diego's graduation ceremony was marked on the 22nd. Her eyes lingered on April 18th, her 29th birthday. She'd always been low-key about birthdays, preferring family gatherings to elaborate celebrations. But this year felt different somehow. Maybe it was approaching 30, or maybe it was the growing weight of responsibility she carried for everyone else's financial security. Ashley had been thinking about her future more lately. While she loved helping her family, she sometimes wondered what it would be like to focus on her own goals for a change. She'd been accepted to a property management certification program that would significantly increase her earning potential, but the timing had never seemed right, with family obligations always taking priority. She closed the calendar and turned off the light, unaware that the next few weeks would change everything about the comfortable routine she'd built her life around. The Martinez family's financial stability, maintained through Ashley's dedicated work, was about to face its biggest test yet. Ashley drifted off to sleep. Ashley's phone displayed 17 unread emails from tenants, contractors, and service providers, all trusting her to handle their concerns with the same reliability she'd demonstrated for years. April 15th arrived with unusual chaos in the Martinez household. Ashley woke to the sound of raised voices coming from the kitchen, an uncommon occurrence in their typically harmonious home.
The insurance payment bounced? Roberto's voice carried a tone of disbelief that Ashley had never heard before. She quickly threw on her robe and hurried downstairs to find her father pacing the kitchen while Carmen sat at the table with her laptop open, staring at bank statements. "What's going on?" Ashley asked, immediately moving to look over her mother's shoulder at the screen. The quarterly insurance payment for all 3 properties was returned for insufficient funds, Carmen explained, her voice tight with stress. "But that's impossible. We've had the same automatic payment set up for years." Ashley's mind raced as she pulled up the banking app on her phone. The insurance payments totaled nearly $8,000, money that should have been easily covered by the rent deposits she'd collected the week before. "There," Ashley pointed to a line item on Carmen's laptop screen. "Look at this withdrawal from April 10th, $15,000 transferred to Diego's student account." Roberto stopped pacing. Diego's spring tuition was already paid months ago. At that moment, Diego emerged from his bedroom, still in pajamas, drawn by the commotion. His face went pale as he saw the 3 family members gathered around the financial documents. "Diego," Carmen's voice was carefully controlled, "did you take money from the business account last week? A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off." The silence stretched uncomfortably before Diego finally nodded. "I can explain. Marcus and I found this incredible investment opportunity, a startup company developing property management software specifically for small landlords like us. I thought." "You thought you could gamble with our insurance money?" Roberto's voice rose again. "It's not gambling, Dad. It's a legitimate investment. Marcus showed me their business plan, their projected returns. We could triple our money within 6 months." Ashley felt something cold settle in her stomach. Marcus Chen was Diego's roommate, known for his get-rich-quick schemes and expensive tastes funded by his parents' tech fortune.
Diego, that money wasn't yours to invest, Ashley said quietly, but her words seemed to hit harder than Roberto's shouting. Do you understand what happens if our insurance lapses? We could lose everything. The returns will cover the insurance payments and more, Diego insisted, but his confidence was wavering. I have all the documentation upstairs. This company is going to revolutionize property management. Carmen closed the laptop with a sharp snap. How much did you give them? 15,000, but Marcus matched it with his own money, so we invested 30,000 total. The minimum buy-in was 25,000, but Marcus convinced them to let us pool our resources. Ashley sank into a chair, calculating rapidly in her head. The insurance payment was due immediately to avoid policy cancellation. They had some reserves, but using them would drain the emergency fund she'd carefully built over 2 years. I need to call the insurance company, she said, already reaching for her phone. Maybe I can arrange a payment extension. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of phone calls, transfers between various insurance departments, and increasingly desperate negotiations. Ashley's professional reputation with their insurance agent, built over years of timely payments and excellent communication, ultimately saved them from immediate cancellation. Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to a 48-hour extension, Ashley announced to the family, who had gathered in the living room awaiting news. But the payment has to be processed by Friday morning, or we're dropped from coverage. So we use the emergency fund? Carmen asked hesitantly. That leaves us with less than $3,000 in reserves, Ashley replied. If any major repairs come up in the next few months. The investment will pay off before then, Diego interrupted, but his voice lacked conviction. Roberto turned to face his son directly. What exactly did you invest in? What's this company's name? Diego shifted uncomfortably. PropTech Innovations. They're developing AI-powered tenant screening and automated maintenance scheduling systems. Ashley immediately opened her laptop and began searching. After 10 minutes of research, her expression grew increasingly grim. Diego, when did you make this investment? Last Tuesday. Why? Ashley turned the laptop screen toward her family. The website for PropTech Innovations displayed a prominent banner. Company operations temporarily suspended pending resolution of SEC investigation. The room fell silent. What does that mean? Diego asked weakly. It means, Ashley said slowly, that the Securities and Exchange Commission is investigating them for potential fraud. All investor funds are frozen until the investigation concludes. Carmen gasped audibly. Roberto's face turned red with suppressed anger. But Marcus said they were about to go public, he protested. He said his father's investment firm had vetted them thoroughly. Ashley continued reading from the screen. The SEC announcement is dated April 11th, the day after you invested. It says here that they've been under investigation for 3 weeks, but the company continued accepting investments without disclosing the investigation to new investors. That's illegal, isn't it? Diego's voice was barely above a whisper. Very illegal, Ashley confirmed. And it means your $15,000, our $15,000, is gone until this investigation concludes. That could take months or even years. The weight of the situation settled over the family like a heavy blanket. Roberto sat down heavily in his recliner. Carmen stared at her hands, and Diego looked like he might be sick. I have to call Mr. Thompson and the other tenants, Ashley said, standing up. I need to transfer the emergency fund to cover the insurance payment. As she headed toward her office, she heard Diego call after her. Ashley, I'm sorry. I thought I was helping the family. Marcus made it sound like a sure thing. She paused in the doorway, but didn't turn around. Diego, Marcus's family can afford to lose $15,000 on a whim. We can't. The rest of the day passed in a blur of financial reorganization and damage control. Ashley moved money between accounts, updated spreadsheets to reflect their new precarious position, and fielded calls from contractors who needed approval for routine maintenance that would now strain their depleted resources. That evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the usual warm conversation was replaced by uncomfortable silence. Diego had spent the afternoon trying unsuccessfully to contact PropTech Innovations and Marcus's father's investment firm, only to discover that Marcus had also been scammed. His family was already pursuing legal action. The lawyer Dad's firm recommended says we might recover some of the money eventually, but it could take years, and there's no guarantee. Ashley nodded while mentally recalculating their financial projections for the next 6 months. Every scenario looked tight, requiring perfect timing on rent collections and no unexpected major repairs. "We'll manage," she said finally, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. "But we need to be extremely careful for the next few months." As she prepared for bed that night, Ashley realized that for the first time in years, she felt truly anxious about their financial future. The safety net she'd carefully woven was gone, and the family's stability now depends entirely on everything going perfectly. She looked at her calendar, noting that her birthday was just 3 days away. Under the circumstances, she decided not to mention it. The family had enough stress without worrying about birthday celebrations they couldn't afford. Ashley's 29th birthday dawned gray and drizzly, typical Portland weather that matched her increasingly somber mood over the past 3 days. She'd been hoping someone in the family would remember, maybe surprise her with breakfast, or at least acknowledge the date, but the house was unusually quiet as she made her way to the kitchen. Carmen was already gone. She'd mentioned the night before about opening the grocery store early for a vendor delivery. Roberto's work boots were missing from their usual spot by the door, indicating he'd left for the construction site before dawn to make up hours he'd lost with the insurance crisis. Diego sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents and laptop printouts, dark circles under his eyes from another sleepless night researching ways to recover the lost investment money. "Morning," Ashley said softly, waiting for some recognition, some sign that he remembered what day it was. "Hey," Diego mumbled without looking up from his papers. "I think I found something. This law firm in Seattle specializes in investment fraud cases. They're willing to take our case on contingency, but they want a detailed timeline of every interaction with PropTech Innovations." That's good news. "Can you help me organize all the financial records? I need to show exactly when the money was transferred, what documentation they provided, everything."
Before Ashley could respond, her phone rang with a call from their most demanding tenant, Mrs. Patterson from the downtown apartment building. "Ashley, I've been waiting 3 days for someone to fix the leak in my bathroom ceiling. Water is dripping into my bedroom now." Ashley quickly pulled up the maintenance schedule on her phone. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm so sorry. Rodriguez Plumbing was supposed to handle that yesterday. Let me call them right now." "This is unacceptable. I pay premium rent for this apartment, and I expect immediate attention to these issues." After hanging up, Ashley immediately dialed Rodriguez Plumbing, only to discover they'd been waiting for approval to order specialized parts that would cost $600, money that would have been readily available a week ago. "Diego, I need to handle this emergency," Ashley said, grabbing her jacket. "Can we work on your legal documents tonight?" "Sure, whatever," Diego replied, not even glancing up. Ashley spent the next 4 hours coordinating repairs, juggling contractor schedules, and reassuring frustrated tenants. By the time she returned home, the afternoon had disappeared, and she found the house bustling with unexpected activity. Melissa was in the kitchen preparing an elaborate dinner, with Sophia helping by stirring something that smelled amazing. Colorful balloons were tied to chairs, and a small pile of wrapped presents sat on the counter. Ashley's heart leaped with relief and joy. They hadn't forgotten after all. "Surprise!" Sophia shouted, running to hug her aunt. "What's all this for?" Ashley asked, smiling for the first time in days. "Diego's graduation celebration," Carmen announced, emerging from the living room with a camera. "I know it's still a few days early, but Melissa thought we should do something special to take our minds off all the stress." Ashley felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. The balloons, the presents, the carefully prepared dinner, none of that was for her. That's wonderful," she managed to say, her voice barely steady. Roberto came through the front door, carrying a cake box from the expensive bakery downtown. "I hope I got the right flavor." They said chocolate with raspberry filling was their most popular graduation cake. "Perfect, Dad," Melissa called from the kitchen. "Diego should be back from the university library any minute." Ashley stood in the middle of the celebration preparations, feeling completely invisible. Her own family had forgotten her 29th birthday, but had planned an elaborate party for Diego's upcoming graduation.
The same Diego whose reckless investment had nearly destroyed their financial security. Ashley, can you help me set up the dining room table? Carmen asked. I want everything to look perfect. Numbly, Ashley helped arrange place settings, hang streamers, and position the gifts just right. Each task felt like a small betrayal of her own hopes for the day. When Diego arrived home, his face lit up with genuine surprise and happiness. You guys didn't have to do this. Of course we did, Roberto said, patting his son on the back. You're graduating in 4 days. That's a huge accomplishment. The family gathered around the dining room table, which Ashley had helped transform into a festive celebration space. The conversation flowed with stories about Diego's college experiences, his future plans, and everyone's pride in his achievement. To Diego, Roberto raised his glass, for completing his business degree and for learning some valuable lessons along the way. Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. Ashley forced a smile and participated, but inside she felt increasingly hollow. Diego, what are your plans after graduation? Melissa asked. Have you heard back from any of those companies you interviewed with? Actually, Diego's eyes sparkled with excitement. I got an offer yesterday from Patterson Development Group. They want me to start as a junior commercial real estate analyst next month. That's incredible, Carmen exclaimed. What's the salary? $55,000 to start, with performance bonuses and full benefits. And get this, they're specifically interested in my family's property management experience. They want me to develop strategies for small portfolio optimization. Ashley nearly choked on her drink. You mean the property management experience I taught you? Well, yeah, Diego said, seeming to notice the edge in her voice for the first time. All those hours you spent explaining the business really paid off. They were impressed with my practical knowledge during the interview. So you're getting a job based on my work? Ashley said quietly. The table fell silent. Roberto cleared his throat uncomfortably. Ashley, you know Diego learned from the whole family, and besides, this job will help him start paying back the money he lost. Pay it back with my expertise? Ashley continued, her voice growing stronger. The same expertise I've been using to keep this family financially stable for 10 years while putting my own career plans on hold. What career plans? Melissa asked, genuinely confused. The property management certification program I was accepted to. The one I couldn't attend because someone needed to handle the day-to-day operations here. The professional opportunities I've turned down because the family needed me. Diego shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Ashley, I didn't know you wanted to do something else. Because nobody ever asked, Ashley replied, standing up from the table. Nobody asks what I want or what I need. You just assume I'll always be here fixing everyone else's problems, managing everyone else's money. That's not fair, Roberto interjected. You're part of this family. We all contribute in different ways. Really? Ashley's composure was beginning to crack. When was the last time any of you handled a tenant complaint, coordinated a repair, stayed up until midnight organizing tax documents? When was the last time any of you even asked how I was doing? The family exchanged uncomfortable glances, but no one answered. You know what today is? Ashley asked, her voice shaking slightly. More silence. Today is my 29th birthday, she said, the words hanging in the air like an accusation. Carmen's hand flew to her mouth. Roberto's face went pale. Diego looked stricken. Ashley, honey, I'm so sorry, Carmen started to say, but Ashley was already walking toward the stairs.
Enjoy your graduation party, she said without turning around. I have work to do. As she climbed the stairs to her makeshift office, Ashley could hear the family's muffled conversations below, probably discussing how they could make it up to her. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she wanted them to try. Ashley spent the remainder of her birthday evening locked in her office, staring at spreadsheets without really seeing them. The sounds of the family cleaning up downstairs had long since faded into silence, but she couldn't bring herself to face them again. Around midnight, a soft knock came at her door. Ashley? Carmen's voice was tentative. Can I come in? Ashley didn't respond, but Carmen entered anyway, carrying a small cupcake with a single candle. I drove to 3 different stores to find something still open, Carmen said, sitting carefully on the edge of Ashley's desk. I know it's not much, but I wanted to. I'm so sorry, mija. Ashley finally looked up from her computer screen. Her mother's eyes were red from crying. We went to the store this morning and bought you a present, Carmen continued, placing a wrapped box next to the cupcake. It's that property management software you mentioned wanting last month. Roberto and we planned to surprise you tomorrow morning, but then Melissa suggested the graduation party and everything got confused and you bought me a present so I could work more efficiently for the family business, Ashley said flatly. Carmen's face crumbled. That's not how we meant it. Ashley opened the gift mechanically. Inside was indeed the property management software she'd mentioned. Expensive, professional-grade software that would streamline tenant communications and maintenance tracking. Under different circumstances, she would have been thrilled. Thank you, she said, but her tone remained distant. The next morning brought no relief from the tension that had settled over the Martinez household. Ashley woke early and threw herself into work, determined to lose herself in the familiar rhythms of property management. She had scheduled back-to-back tenant inspections, contractor meetings, and maintenance walkthroughs, anything to avoid extended conversations with her family. At the downtown apartment building, she met with Jake Morrison, a new tenant who'd been having issues with his apartment's electrical system. The outlets in the bedroom don't work at all, Jake explained, leading Ashley through his one-bedroom unit. And the kitchen lights flicker constantly. I'm worried about fire hazards. Ashley made detailed notes and immediately called Peterson Electric, the company they'd used for years. The news wasn't good. The building's electrical panel is from the 1970s, Mike Peterson explained after his initial assessment. It needs a complete upgrade. We're talking about $15,000 minimum, probably closer to $20,000 once we get into the walls. Ashley felt her stomach drop. 3 weeks ago, this would have been a manageable expense. Now, with their depleted reserves and Diego's lost investment, it represented a financial catastrophe. How long can we safely delay this work? She asked. Mike shook his head grimly. I can't in good conscience recommend delaying electrical work when there are safety concerns. If something happens and someone gets hurt. Ashley spent the rest of the day getting second and third opinions, hoping for better news. That didn't come. Every electrician confirmed that the building needed immediate attention, and every estimate fell in the same devastating price range. That evening, she called a family meeting in the living room. Everyone gathered reluctantly, the previous night's tension still hanging heavy in the air. We have a problem, Ashley began without preamble. The downtown building needs emergency electrical work. The estimates range from $15,000 to $20,000. Roberto ran his hands through his hair. Jesus, can we get a loan? Our credit is already stretched thin from the property purchases, and with Diego's investment situation, Ashley trailed off. What about the emergency fund? Melissa asked. We used most of it for the insurance payment. There's about $3,000 left. Carmen leaned forward in her chair. What are our options? Ashley had spent hours running calculations, and none of the scenarios were good. We can try to get a high-interest personal loan, which would eat into our monthly cash flow for years. We can sell one of the properties, but in this market, we'd likely take a loss. Or, she paused, hating what she was about to suggest, or we can sell the house. The silence that followed was deafening. Sell our home? Roberto's voice was barely above a whisper. The equity in this house would cover the electrical work and give us a financial cushion. We could rent something smaller, rebuild our savings. Absolutely not, Roberto said firmly. This house has been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built the addition with his own hands. Then we need another solution, Ashley replied, because I won't put tenants at risk and I won't let us get sued if someone gets hurt. Diego, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. What if I don't take the job with Patterson Development? I could stay home and help with the properties full-time. Maybe we could reduce expenses by not needing to hire outside help for some things? Ashley stared at her brother in disbelief. Diego, you caused this crisis.
Your $15,000 would have easily covered this electrical work. And now you want to solve it by giving up the job you got using my expertise? I'm trying to help, Diego protested. By staying home and doing what exactly? You don't know how to screen tenants, coordinate repairs, handle complaints, manage contracts, or deal with any of the 100 other things I do every day. What you're offering is to quit your job so you can pretend to help while I continue doing everything. That's not fair, Melissa interjected. Ashley turned to her sister with years of suppressed frustration finally boiling over. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I've been supporting this family financially while you were married, supporting you and Sophia when you got divorced, managing everyone's problems while putting my own life on hold. When exactly has anyone worried about what's fair to me? Carmen tried to intervene. Ashley, we know how hard you work. Do you? Ashley challenged. Do you know that I wake up at 5:30 every morning to handle East Coast vendor calls? Do you know I work 7 days a week because property emergencies don't take weekends off? Do you know I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years because someone needs to be available for tenant issues? We never asked you to work that hard, Roberto said quietly. You didn't have to ask. Someone had to do it, and I was the only one capable. But I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm tired of everyone assuming I'll just handle everything while you all pursue your own interests.
Ashley stood up from the couch, her decision crystallizing as she spoke. I've been thinking about this since yesterday. Maybe it's time for someone else to handle the family business. What do you mean? Carmen asked, an alarm creeping into her voice. I mean, maybe Diego should use that business degree he earned with my help. Maybe he should turn down his dream job and figure out how to manage these properties himself. Ashley, you can't be serious, Roberto said. I am completely serious. You want to keep the house? You want to maintain the properties? You want to preserve the family business? Then figure out how to do it without me. The family stared at her in stunned silence. I'll finish out this week, Ashley continued, her voice growing steadier with each word. I'll handle the electrical emergency and make sure all the immediate crises are resolved. But starting Monday, I'm no longer your property manager. Where will you go? Sophia asked, in a small voice, speaking for the first time that evening. Ashley looked at her niece, the only family member who seemed to understand the weight of what was happening. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but I need to find out who I am when I'm not fixing everyone else's problems. As she walked toward the stairs, Ashley heard Carmen begin to cry softly, and Roberto muttering about ungrateful children. But for the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. Ashley spent Friday morning methodically organizing every file, every contact, every piece of information the family would need to manage their properties independently. Her resignation hadn't been an empty threat. She was genuinely preparing to walk away from the business she'd built from the ground up. As she compiled vendor contact lists and maintenance schedules, her phone buzzed with a text from her college friend, Natalie Kim, who worked as a real estate attorney in Seattle. Hey, stranger. I know this is random, but my firm is looking for an experienced property manager to oversee our client portfolio. Interested in a change of scenery? The salary starts at $75,000 plus bonuses. Ashley stared at the message, feeling like the universe was providing her with a sign. She hadn't spoken to Natalie in over a year, but their friendship had remained strong despite the distance. Without hesitation, she typed back. Very interesting. Can you call me? 20 minutes later, Ashley was on a video call with Natalie and her managing partner, discussing a position that sounded like everything she'd dreamed of: professional growth, competitive compensation, and most importantly, the chance to build her own career rather than maintaining someone else's. We've been following your work through mutual contacts in the industry, the managing partner explained. Your reputation for thorough documentation and tenant relations is exactly what our clients need. When would you be available to start? I could relocate within 2 weeks, Ashley heard herself say, surprising even herself with how quickly she'd made the decision. After the call ended, Ashley felt a mixture of excitement and terror.
For the first time in her adult life, she was making a decision purely for herself, without considering how it would affect her family's needs. The sound of raised voices from downstairs interrupted her thoughts. Curious, despite herself, she crept to the top of the stairs to listen. "We can't just let her leave," Carmen was saying, her voice strained with worry. "She knows everything about the business. We'll lose everything without her." "Maybe that's what she wants," Diego replied bitterly. "Maybe she wants us to fail so she can prove how important she is." "Don't be stupid," Roberto's voice cut through sharply. "Your sister isn't vindictive. She's hurt, and she has every right to be." Ashley heard Melissa's voice join the conversation. "I've been thinking about what she said yesterday, about putting her life on hold for us. When was the last time Ashley went on a date, or even went out with friends?" "She's always been focused on work," Carmen said weakly. "Because we never gave her any other choice," Roberto countered. "Every time she mentioned wanting to do something else, we had another crisis that needed her attention." Ashley felt tears pricking at her eyes as she listened to her father's words, the first real acknowledgement she'd heard of her sacrifices. "So what do we do?" Diego asked, his earlier bitterness replaced by genuine concern. "We figure out how to manage without her," Roberto said firmly. Ashley retreated to her room, conflicted about what she'd overheard. Part of her was vindicated to finally hear her family acknowledging what she'd given up for them, but another part felt guilty for considering leaving them to struggle with problems they weren't equipped to handle. Saturday morning brought the first real test of the family's ability to function without Ashley's management. She had deliberately not checked her phone for tenant calls or maintenance issues, leaving early to drive to Seattle for an in-person interview with Natalie's firm. The 3-hour drive through Washington's scenic landscape gave Ashley time to reflect on the life she'd built and the life she might be leaving behind. She'd always loved Portland, loved being close to family, but she'd never had the opportunity to discover what she might love even more. Seattle's skyline came into view as she crested a hill, and Ashley felt a thrill of possibility. The city represented everything she'd never allowed herself to want: professional advancement, financial independence, and the chance to build her own career rather than maintaining someone else's. "We've been following your work through mutual contacts in the industry," the managing partner explained. "Your reputation for thorough documentation and tenant relations is exactly what our clients need. When would you be available to start?" "I could relocate within 2 weeks," Ashley heard herself say, surprising even herself with how quickly she'd made the decision. After the call ended, Ashley felt a mixture of excitement and terror. For the first time in her adult life, she was making a decision purely for herself, without considering how it would affect her family's needs. The sound of raised voices from downstairs interrupted her thoughts. Curious, despite herself, she crept to the top of the stairs to listen. "We can't just let her leave," Carmen was saying, her voice strained with worry. "She knows everything about the business. We'll lose everything without her." "Maybe that's what she wants," Diego replied bitterly. "Maybe she wants us to fail so she can prove how important she is." "Don't be stupid," Roberto's voice cut through sharply. "Your sister isn't vindictive. She's hurt, and she has every right to be." Ashley heard Melissa's voice join the conversation. "I've been thinking about what she said yesterday, about putting her life on hold for us. When was the last time Ashley went on a date, or even went out with friends?" "She's always been focused on work," Carmen said weakly. "Because we never gave her any other choice," Roberto countered. "Every time she mentioned wanting to do something else, we had another crisis that needed her attention." Ashley felt tears pricking at her eyes as she listened to her father's words, the first real acknowledgement she'd heard of her sacrifices. "So what do we do?" Diego asked, his earlier bitterness replaced by genuine concern. "We figure out how to manage without her," Roberto said firmly. Ashley retreated to her room, conflicted about what she'd overheard. Part of her was vindicated to finally hear her family acknowledging what she'd given up for them, but another part felt guilty for considering leaving them to struggle with problems they weren't equipped to handle. Saturday morning brought the first real test of the family's ability to function without Ashley's management. She had deliberately not checked her phone for tenant calls or maintenance issues, leaving early to drive to Seattle for an in-person interview with Natalie's firm. The 3-hour drive through Washington's scenic landscape gave Ashley time to reflect on the life she'd built and the life she might be leaving behind. She'd always loved Portland, loved being close to family, but she'd never had the opportunity to discover what she might love even more. Seattle's skyline came into view as she crested a hill, and Ashley felt a thrill of possibility. The city represented everything she'd never allowed herself to want: professional advancement, financial independence, and the chance to build her own career rather than maintaining someone else's. The interview went even better than the phone call. Natalie's firm managed high-end commercial properties and luxury residential buildings, the kind of sophisticated portfolio Ashley had always dreamed of working with. The challenges were complex, the clients demanding, and the compensation reflected the professional level of expertise required. "We'd like to offer you the position," the managing partner said at the end of their 3-hour meeting. "When can you start?" "I need to give my current situation 2 weeks' notice," Ashley replied, though part of her wondered if her family deserved even that courtesy. On the drive back to Portland, Ashley's phone rang constantly with calls from various Martinez family members, but she let them all go to voicemail. She needed space to process the enormity of the decision she was making. When she finally listened to the messages that evening, the progression told a story of mounting panic. Diego's voice, strained. "Ashley, Mrs. Patterson called about her bathroom leak again. The water damage is getting worse. I don't know which plumber to call." Carmen, fighting back tears. "Mija, the insurance company called about some documentation they need. I don't understand what they're asking for." Melissa, frustrated. "The tenant in apartment 2C says his refrigerator stopped working. He wants it replaced immediately or he's breaking his lease. What are we supposed to do?" Roberto, exhausted. "Ashley, I know you're angry, but we need your help. The electrician came by and said the work needs to start Monday or he's giving our slot to another client. We still don't know how to pay for it."
The final message was from Sophia, her 8-year-old niece. "Aunt Ashley, everyone is really stressed out. Mom is crying and Grandma keeps saying she doesn't know what to do. Are you coming home soon?" Ashley sat in her parked car outside her Seattle hotel, listening to her family's mounting desperation. Part of her felt satisfied that they were finally understanding how much work she'd been doing behind the scenes, but hearing Sophia's worried voice made her chest tighten with guilt. She spent Sunday morning walking through Seattle's Pike Place Market and along the waterfront, trying to imagine herself living in this vibrant city. She could see herself grabbing coffee before work, maybe joining a hiking group, possibly even dating someone who wasn't intimidated by her professional success. But every few minutes, her phone would buzz with another crisis from Portland. The Martinez family was discovering in real time just how many moving pieces Ashley had been juggling, and they were dropping every single one. By Sunday afternoon, Ashley had made her decision. She would return to Portland and spend one final week ensuring the electrical work was completed and the most pressing issues were resolved. Then she would move to Seattle and start the career she'd always dreamed of. What she didn't expect was to find her family's entire world falling apart in the span of just 3 days. As she drove south toward Portland, Ashley began to realize that walking away might be easier said than done, not because she couldn't leave, but because the people she'd spent years protecting were about to discover just how much they'd taken for granted. The real test wasn't whether Ashley could build a new life for herself. The real test was whether the Martinez family could survive without the person who'd been quietly holding their dreams together for nearly a decade. Ashley returned to Portland Sunday evening to find chaos that exceeded even her worst expectations. The family home buzzed with frantic activity as every Martinez family member tried unsuccessfully to handle the property management disasters that had accumulated over just 3 days. Roberto was on the phone with what sounded like an angry tenant, repeatedly saying, "I understand your frustration," while frantically flipping through Ashley's contact lists. Carmen sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by insurance documents, looking completely overwhelmed. Melissa was attempting to schedule contractor appointments on a laptop she clearly didn't know how to operate efficiently. Diego emerged from Ashley's office looking haggard, carrying a stack of financial records.
"Thank God you're back," he said. "Everything is falling apart. The electrical contractor says if we don't give him a deposit by tomorrow morning, he's moving on to another job. Mrs. Patterson's bathroom leak has now damaged the apartment below hers, and those tenants are threatening to sue. The refrigerator in 2C died completely, and the tenant has already started looking for a new place." Ashley listened to the litany of disasters with a strange sense of detachment. 3 days ago, these problems would have sent her into immediate crisis management mode. Now, they felt like someone else's problems. "Where have you been?" Carmen asked, looking up from her paperwork with red-rimmed eyes. "We've been trying to reach you all weekend." "I had some business to take care of," Ashley replied carefully. "Business?" Roberto hung up the phone and turned to face her. "What kind of business?" Ashley took a deep breath. "I had a job interview in Seattle." The room fell silent except for the sound of Melissa's typing stopping abruptly. "A job interview?" Diego repeated slowly. "You're really serious about leaving?" "I start in 2 weeks," Ashley announced, surprised by how calm her voice sounded. Carmen gasped audibly. Roberto sank into a chair. Melissa stared at her laptop screen as if it might provide answers. 2 weeks, Roberto's voice cracked slightly. "Ashley, you can't be serious. Look around. We need 3 months just to figure out how to handle the current emergencies." "You'll figure it out," Ashley replied. "You have Diego's business degree and everyone's combined intelligence. You managed to build this portfolio before I took over the day-to-day operations." "That was different," Carmen protested. "The business was smaller then, less complicated." Diego stepped forward, and Ashley could see genuine panic in his eyes. "Ashley, I know I messed up with the investment. I know I caused this financial crisis. But please don't punish the whole family because of my mistake." "This isn't punishment, Diego. This is me finally choosing myself." "But the electrical work alone will cost $20,000, Melissa interjected. "Where are we supposed to get that money?" Ashley had been dreading this moment, but she'd made her decision during the drive back from Seattle. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "Call Jennifer Walsh at Portland Community Bank. She handles small business loans. Your credit should be good enough for a short-term loan to cover emergency repairs." "You already researched loan options?" Roberto asked, hope creeping into his voice. "I researched everything you'll need for the next 6 months. Contact information for reliable contractors, vendor payment schedules, tenant renewal dates, maintenance calendars. It's all organized in the office filing system." Carmen burst into tears. "You really are leaving us." The raw emotion in her mother's voice almost broke Ashley's resolve, but she forced herself to remain firm. "Mom, I've been taking care of everyone else's needs for 10 years. It's time I took care of my own." "What about Sophia's school play next month?" Melissa asked desperately. "You promised you'd help her memorize her lines." Ashley felt a pang of guilt at the mention of her niece, but she couldn't let family obligations derail her plans again. "You're her mother, Melissa. You can help her with her lines." "But you're so much better at that stuff," Melissa protested. "Because I've had to be," Ashley replied. "Because everyone always assumed I'd handle it." Roberto stood up slowly, his face grave. "Ashley, I need you to understand something. If you leave now, if you abandon us during this crisis, there might not be a family business to come back to." "I know," Ashley said quietly. "I've run the numbers. You have about 4 months before the loan payments and reduced efficiency catch up with you. After that, you'll probably have to sell at least one property." "And you're okay with that?" Diego asked incredulously. "I'm okay with it being your problem to solve." The harshness of her own words surprised Ashley, but she realized she meant them. For years, she'd absorbed every family crisis, every financial stress, every difficult decision. The weight of constantly being responsible for everyone else's well-being had been crushing her slowly, and she was finally ready to put it down. Carmen wiped her eyes and looked at Ashley with something that might have been understanding. "What's the job in Seattle?" "Senior property manager for a law firm's commercial portfolio. $75,000 a year plus performance bonuses."
That's... Roberto paused, calculating. "That's nearly double what we've been able to pay you here. Plus full benefits, vacation time, and opportunities for advancement," Ashley added. "Why didn't you ever tell us you wanted more money?" Carmen asked. Ashley laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Mom, when would I have told you? Between managing your properties, handling Diego's college expenses, supporting Melissa through her divorce, and making sure Sophia had everything she needed, when exactly was I supposed to say, by the way, I have dreams too? The family exchanged uncomfortable glances, finally beginning to understand the full scope of what Ashley had sacrificed. There's something else, Ashley continued, her voice gaining strength. The reason I could never take that certification program, never pursue other opportunities, never build my own career, it wasn't just the time commitment. It was because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Roberto asked, gently. Afraid that if I focused on myself, even for a moment, everything would fall apart. And you know what I discovered this weekend? Ashley looked around at each family member, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time in years. I was right. Everything did fall apart. In 3 days, you've managed to create more crises than I typically handle in a month. Mrs. Patterson's leak became a major water damage issue. The refrigerator replacement became a lease termination threat. The electrical work went from urgent to emergency status. We didn't know how to handle those things, Diego said, defensively. Exactly, Ashley replied, because for 10 years, I've been enabling all of you to avoid learning. I've been so afraid of letting anyone down that I never gave you the chance to grow up and take responsibility. She walked toward the stairs, then turned back to face her family one more time. I'll spend this week training Diego on the basic systems and making sure the electrical work gets started. After that, you're on your own. As she climbed the stairs, Ashley heard Carmen whisper to Roberto, "She really means it, doesn't she?" Yes, Roberto replied quietly, and maybe she should. For the first time since she'd returned from Seattle, Ashley smiled. Ashley's final week in Portland passed in a whirlwind of intensive training sessions with Diego, emergency contractor meetings, and careful documentation of every system the Martinez family would need to maintain their properties independently. True to her word, she secured the emergency loan for the electrical work and supervised the first day of installation to ensure everything started correctly. But she also made it clear that from Tuesday onward, Diego would be handling all contractor communications and problem-solving. The transformation in her family's behavior was remarkable. Without Ashley as their safety net, each member stepped up in ways she'd never seen before. Roberto took over all maintenance inspections, using the detailed checklists Ashley had created. His construction background made him surprisingly effective at identifying potential problems before they became expensive emergencies. Carmen began handling tenant communications with a warmth and professionalism that impressed even Ashley. Her years of managing customer service issues at the grocery store translated perfectly to addressing resident concerns. Melissa discovered she had a talent for financial organization, taking over the bookkeeping and vendor payment schedules with meticulous attention to detail that rivaled Ashley's own methods. Even Sophia contributed by creating a simple tracking system for maintenance requests using colored sticky notes and a large calendar, a system so intuitive that the adults adopted it immediately. But it was Diego's transformation that surprised Ashley the most. Faced with the real possibility of losing everything due to his investment mistake, her younger brother threw himself into learning property management with genuine dedication. He spent hours studying Ashley's files, called contractors to understand pricing structures, and even convinced Mrs. Patterson to give them another chance by personally overseeing the bathroom repairs. On Thursday evening, Ashley found herself sitting at the kitchen table reviewing the week's progress with Diego. The improvement in his competence was undeniable. "I never realized how much you juggled simultaneously," Diego admitted, looking exhausted but determined. "Yesterday, I spent 4 hours just coordinating 3 different contractors for the downtown building. How did you manage 12 properties plus all the administrative work?" "Practice," Ashley replied, and accepting that I couldn't have a life outside of work. Diego was quiet for a moment, then looked up at her with genuine remorse. "Ashley, I owe you more than just an apology for the investment money. I owe you an apology for taking your expertise for granted and then getting a job based on knowledge you taught me." "You don't need to apologize for getting the job, Diego.
You earned that through your education and interviews. But I was getting credit for practical experience that was really your experience. It wasn't fair. Ashley studied her brother's face and saw a maturity that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. What are you going to do about it? I talked to Patterson Development yesterday. I told them I wanted to revise my start date and work arrangement. Ashley raised an eyebrow, curious. I negotiated a part-time position for the first 6 months, 3 days with them, 2 days managing our family properties. It pays less initially, but it gives me time to properly learn our business while building my career. And they agreed to that? They were impressed that I was taking responsibility for a family financial crisis, said it showed maturity and commitment. Diego grinned slightly. Plus, they're interested in potentially partnering with us on small development projects once our properties are stable again. Ashley felt a surge of pride in her brother's growth, though she tried not to let it show too much. That sounds like a good plan. There's more, Diego said, reaching into a folder beside him. I've been working with the lawyer about the PropTech investment. It looks like we might recover about 60% of the money within the next year. The SEC investigation found evidence of fraud, and they're forcing asset liquidation for investor reimbursement. Ashley looked at the legal documents Diego handed her, impressed by his thoroughness in following up on what could have been a complete loss. But even if we get some money back, Diego continued, I want to pay you back personally for what my mistake cost the family. Starting with my first Patterson Development paycheck, I'm going to give you 20% of my income until I've covered the full $15,000 plus interest. Diego, that's not necessary.
Yes, it is, he interrupted firmly. You've been supporting this family financially for years while building our business value. The least I can do is take responsibility for my own mistakes. Friday morning brought Ashley's final family breakfast in Portland. The atmosphere was bittersweet, proud of how much everyone had learned and accomplished in just 1 week, but sad about her impending departure. I have something for all of you, Ashley announced, pulling out 4 wrapped packages. Carmen opened hers first, revealing a leather-bound planner filled with Ashley's handwritten notes about property management strategies, tenant psychology, and business development ideas. This is like a property management Bible, Carmen breathed, flipping through pages of carefully organized wisdom. Roberto's gift was a comprehensive contact database, not just phone numbers, but detailed notes about each contractor's strengths, pricing, and reliability based on Ashley's years of working relationships. Melissa received financial planning software, along with detailed instructions for tracking expenses, projecting cash flow, and preparing tax documents, tools that would serve both the family business and her personal financial recovery. Diego's package contained something unexpected: business cards reading Martinez Property Management, with his name as operations manager and Ashley's name as founding partner. I don't understand, Diego said, examining the cards. Ashley took a deep breath. I've been thinking about this all week. I'm still moving to Seattle, and I'm still taking the job with Natalie's firm, but I want to maintain a partnership in the family business. The family stared at her in surprise. I'll be a silent partner, Ashley continued. I'll provide consultation and guidance when needed, but the day-to-day operations will be entirely Diego's responsibility. When the business grows and becomes profitable again, we'll split the increased value. Ashley, Roberto said quietly, you don't have to do that. I want to do it, she replied, not because I feel guilty about leaving, but because I believe in what we've built together, and because I finally trust all of you to manage it without me. Carmen began crying again, but this time they seemed like tears of pride rather than despair. There's one more thing, Ashley added, standing up from the table. I'm sorry it took forgetting my birthday for me to realize that I needed to prioritize my own happiness, but I'm not sorry for the wake-up call. Sophia, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversation, suddenly spoke up. Aunt Ashley, will you come visit us in Seattle? Actually, sweetheart, Ashley smiled, I'm hoping all of you will come visit me in Seattle. As Ashley loaded her belongings into her car later that morning, she realized that leaving didn't feel like abandoning her family anymore. It felt like giving them the gift of discovering their own capabilities while finally claiming the life she deserved.
The Martinez family stood on the front porch, waving goodbye as Ashley pulled away from Maple Street. In her rearview mirror, she could see them talking animatedly, probably already discussing the day's property management tasks. For the first time in 10 years, Ashley Martinez was driving toward her own future, confident that the people she loved would not only survive without her constant care, but would thrive because of the strength she'd finally allowed them to discover. The Martinez family stood on the front porch, waving goodbye as Ashley pulled away from Maple Street. In her rearview mirror, she could see them talking animatedly, probably already discussing the day's property management tasks. For the first time in 10 years, Ashley Martinez was driving toward her own future, confident that the people she loved would not only survive without her constant care, but would thrive because of the strength she'd finally allowed them to discover. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.